So thank you for having us. So first of all, Stephen and Daniel, thank you for being on stage with me. Stephen is co-founder and CEO of Bought My Many, pet insurance startup. And Daniel is co-founder of Salary Finance, which is financial wellness scale-up. Now, and I'm Masha Feigelman. I lead Fuel, which is a McKinsey company supporting startups and scale-ups to faster and better growth. Now, the topic of today is learning from high-impact partnerships with corporates. I'm going to start with a couple of observations that we see from scale-ups and startups working with corporates, and then ask Daniel and Stephen here a couple of questions about their experience.
Sure.
So, first of all, from our recent research, we have seen that there's definitely an unprecedented growth in corporate engagement with startups. 35% growth in 2018 alone of new corporate venturing. 84% of all executives say that they're really corporate executives looking for innovation. 2 times corporate participation in the new deals compared to 5-6 years ago. And as probably many of you know, 80% of financial institutions have some kind of partnerships with fintech. Now, while there are clear benefits, we also see that there are many obstacles that remain. So now, on benefits, and this is findings from our recent research, which actually some of it to me was almost a little bit surprising. So one is you are 64% more likely to exit via IPO or M&A or LBO if you have a corporate participation as a startup or scale up, and 33% less likely to go bankrupt. Now, to me, I wasn't expecting the numbers to be that high and that obvious. But however, as many of you probably know, corporates are really looking for innovation, and startups and scale-ups are really looking for distribution. And so there's a little bit of a misalignment of the objective. And as well as many corporates themselves admit that sometimes scale-ups and startups drown a little bit into the bureaucracy of big organizations. So the question is, how do you take advantage of those clear benefits without obstacles and trying to eliminate as many of them that remain? Now, 4 things from our perspective that you really need to think about and to get right. First, really understanding the strategic intent and the mandate of the CVC or corporate partner. Second one is really figuring out the governance and how it works, because that has a huge potential of drowning in bureaucracy. And how exactly it works, the better performing CVCs have much closer connection to CXO level. 3 is who is the team and how much time they're going to be spending with you. And 4, really understanding the give and take of what are they expecting from you, what are you expecting from them. And I think the combination of, we were talking with Daniel just earlier, the combination of having the common strategic intent, but then very clear give and take, what ultimately helps some of those partnerships work and results into 66% more likely to exit and 33% less likely to go bankrupt. But that's just a quick summary of our observations. Now, wanted to ask Stephen and Daniel, what have your experience been? Stephen, I know you work with Munich Re, and Daniel, I know you work with Legal in General. Right. So, Stephen, maybe we would like with you.
So, Masha, thank you very much.
What is it in reality?
So I think that if I look at the 4 pieces that McKinsey has dug out, I recognize all 4 in our relationship with Munich Re. We have a relationship with other insurers, but we work closest with Munich Re. We work deepest with Munich Re. We have Munich Re on our cap table, not in a big way. They're not in our boardroom. But they are an important part of our future growth. We spend a lot of time with them. And we persuaded them that they should go direct to market. So for a reinsurer to go direct to market, at the time when we had this conversation with them nearly 4 years ago, January 2016, this was unheard of. And I persuaded them to do this, that this was a great way to build a future for Munich Re that was separate from them being a straightforward reinsurer. And so the strategic intent piece was upfront. It was a core part of the original conversation. We have a very core governance procedure with them, monthly meetings with a set agenda and a set of attendees, and a quarterly review session at the senior level. And so that's the first two of your pieces. They are keen to learn about entry into new markets. They're keen to understand how to price, because a reinsurer doesn't do B2C pricing. So there's kind of lots of really interesting learnings for them about how to operate in new marketplaces. But I think the last piece is the bit that I think that is most important, is this give and take. They are investors in us. They see it as a very important part of being connected to us, that they have aligned equity interests with us. We are now in 2 countries. We launched into Sweden in July. They absolutely backed us into Sweden. And we're now spending a lot of time thinking really hard about the US. And they are very, very keen to back us into the US as well. They put a lot of money into that, nothing to do with equity, to pay for some of our costs of entering a new country. So it's very much a joint partnership between the two of us. When things go wrong, we talk about them, and clear they go wrong often. But when things go right, we celebrate together as well.
Yeah, yeah. Daniel, and I'll ask you what tends to go wrong in a minute, but Daniel, what about your experience with legal in
So first of
general?
all, good morning to you all. Thank you very much for joining us for the session. First of all, I should mention what Salary Finance is personally, because some of you may not be familiar with. So I'm the co-founder of Salary Finance, founded with the former head of Google UK, Dan Cobley and Asesh Sarkar. It's a social mission-led business, helping employees move from debt into savings and ultimately building a secure financial future to enable them to live their financial best. I founded the company 4 years ago, and about nearly 2 years ago now, we brought in Legal & General, which is the largest UK asset manager and insurance company, in as a partner. The way I describe it, first of all, in terms of the UK economy, the startups that we have are fundamental to our society. Unfortunately, many of them just don't survive. So I see the corporate partnerships as an essential backbone to help these organizations, particularly that are scalable, measurable in the impact they're having, but sustainable long term, to enable them to have the greatest impact. And because ultimately the social impact is at the core of everything we do in the organization, it's extremely important to me that we had a partner that could help us. So the analogy that I used when I spoke to Masha before is very much like a marriage. It's very much look on a piece of paper, let's say, what you bring to the partnership, what we bring to the partnership, and if the goals are collectively aligned and they're core to what the priorities are for the respective businesses, it's more likely to get the airtime it's required. And we're one of probably 270 companies L&G have backed. I say particularly what's worked extremely well for us in the partnership is the fact that they are not arm's length. They sit with us day to day in the office, and we have an individual who not only sits with us day to day, but also works with us and thinking of how we tackle some of the biggest issues in the business as well. So it's been a very successful partnership for us, I must say. I mean, we are very proud to be working with L&G, genuinely have been able to get to scale. We're operational in America as well, with a mission to get 10 million people out of debt. And because it's a free employee benefit, it's quite quick to access what is a B2B2C model. Fundamentally, we're able to help a lot of employees prove to them that we're not underwriting credit from a traditional point of view, using their credit score. We're ultimately using the fact that people are employed to help them get out of debt quickly and build this savings fund and ultimately even get on the housing ladder. And so I think ultimately what L&G has brought to us is the confidence that when we engage with the large corporates, of which we work with about 15% of the FTSE today, is the ability to know that these companies that they're working with are going to be around long term, but more importantly, they're organizations that can make sure they can make a real difference, because what every company looks for is, can you show the CEO at the end of the day that you're making a meaningful bottom line impact by working with you? And that's, I think, key to the MI that we do around the clients.
Now, last question in a few seconds that we have left, but maybe a minute. If you were talking to a startup or scale-ups thinking about engaging with a corporate, what would be your couple of words of advice, to them?
So it's an interesting question, because I think that if we had our time again, would we pick Munich Re again? And I think the answer is yes. I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. I think you've got to find a strategic fit, something that works for both parties, not a commercial fit. It's different from a commercial fit, because I don't think that a startup should ever convince themselves that they're going to be meaningful to a large corporate. That may happen in time, but that isn't going to happen for several years. There's got to be a strategic intent. I think that's the first thing. And I think the second is that these are people that you can work with. You've got to work side by side with them. These have got to be people who really understand, when you recruit into startup, culture is critically important, but when you find a partnership, it's different. I mean, Daniel's talking about marriage, and I'm not quite sure that you need to go down the route of kind of the same investigation as you might do when you're finding a husband or a wife, but I do think that you need to think long and hard about, are these people I really want to work alongside?
Yeah. Daniel?
There's a few things I'd highlight. First and foremost, the cultural fit, because that's the backbone of a successful working relationship. The cultural fit between the two companies is aligned. That generally is a good sign. The second thing is, what is your longer term goals? Are you both trying to look for the same ultimate goal? Most of these partnerships, I think, don't work fundamentally because at some point in that journey, the ambition and the intent of where you want to go differs, and that causes a fractured relationship. And so being very clear about where your end goal is and where you're trying to go. And I would say one other thing is that having a corporate partnership doesn't need to be something that necessarily is dominant for the entire journey. It could be at that stage in your life, that corporate partnership with Munich Re or for us LNG is actually the best thing for you to do. But the next phase of your life, another partner comes in, just in the same way as the same CEO often isn't the CEO that takes a startup to a scale up to an established business. And that would be my last sort of point to share with the crowd.
Yeah.
Are you getting rid of me?
No, not at all.
Well, thank you very much. Hope this was helpful. I don't think we have time for questions, but I'll wait for Marco.
You're back.
Do we have time for questions, or we're out?
We always have time for questions, but not today, I'm afraid.
Ah.